Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Excited to see everybody. I think let's go ahead and get started. We're getting started here. Why don't you go ahead and share your names and affiliations, your role, your organization, and where you're dialing in from in the chat so we can get to know each other a little bit.
It's nice to see some familiar faces out there.
Yeah, go ahead and jump in, folks. Let us know where you're hailing in from.
I'm Jeremy Garver, calling in from Denver, Colorado, as part of the Wish of a Lifetime from AARP team.
Awesome, Jeremy. Go ahead and throw that in the chat if you could, everybody, and we'll get started. So today we are here in today's hot seat coaching session to talk about fundraising without fear, mastering the art of the ask. So we're diving into a topic that strikes fear into even the most seasoned fundraisers, the ask. Whether it's asking for major gifts, an event sponsorship, or even a small donation, something about it can sometimes feel a little uncomfortable. And maybe it's just that fear of rejection, that worry maybe about being too pushy or uncertainty about what to say. But good news, it does not have to feel scary. This is an experience that can feel natural, confident, and even joyful if you prepare and remember that your donors are your partners on this journey. So my name is Sandra Davis. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder and CEO of Donorly. At Donorly, we partner with small and mid-sized nonprofits during moments of growth and change to strengthen their fundraising muscle through donor research, storytelling, and community building. Fundraising can feel intimidating, even for experienced nonprofit leaders. Fear often creeps in when we don't feel prepared, lack confidence, or when the process itself feels mysterious. But that's today's session. That's what it's all about today. Moving through that fear so fundraising can feel authentic, strategic, and even joyful. So whether you're nervous about asking for a major gift, uncomfortable about following up, or simply unsure about how to start the conversation, this session will help you turn hesitation into confidence. I'm really, really excited to welcome our guest expert today for today's coaching session, Allison Rabbitt. With 24 years in fundraising, Allison blends strategy and heart to deliver results. She's led development teams, boosted giving programs, and driven capital projects with organizations such as Seattle Opera, Henry Art Gallery, and the Seattle Center Foundation. As boss lady at RoosterRabbitt Consulting, she supports Pacific Northwest nonprofits by providing effective counsel for campaigns and interim leadership that builds momentum for success. We're so lucky to have Allison with us today to help us unpack these fears and reframe the way we think about asking. Allison, before we dive in, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandra. I think what you're doing at Donorly is fantastic, and I always reference your work, and it's just been lovely to have you as a friend and a colleague for so many years. But so thank you for having me. I have to say that, before I became a professional fundraiser, I was taught how to be of service. My family volunteered. So as a kid, I was in the back seat while my mom drove people to get groceries and, just this constant service. So it was natural to kind of go into fundraising from my art history background, which we can talk about that in another hot seat. But this is a little embarrassing. I'm just going to go off camera for 1 second. Sandra, can you just?
Yeah, no problem.
So sorry. Somebody's at the door and we're in a new place.
This is what happens in a live event, huh?
I know,
the
right?
way it is.
Live here. Somehow. Okay.
We're here for you.
They're good. Okay, so here I am. Happy Halloween, everybody. Happy Halloween. I'm starting off with, I have a little story to tell you, and I'm going to tell it in this shark costume, and it's about fear. So many years ago, my daughter, who's now 25, but when she was about 3, she was a climber, and I am afraid of heights.
Mm.
But, as a great mom, I want to learn to push my boundaries. I want to do new things. So I went with her and a family member to the climbing gym, and I was climbing up the wall. And I swear the wall was like 40 feet high. It probably wasn't. I might have only been 10 feet off the ground, but I could hear my daughter, who was about 3 at the time, say to the person who was holding me, with the ropes, "Why is she moving so slowly? Why is this taking so long?" And I hear him say to her, well, Grace, some people are afraid of sharks, but your mom's afraid of heights." And I'm up there thinking, isn't everybody afraid of sharks? I thought we were, but that snapped me out of it, and it got me going up the wall, and I did it. But anyway, we all have different fears, and I just wanted to just add a little levity to. If you're afraid of sharks, put it in the chat, because I'm pretty sure most people are. But
I love the costume. That is a shark I am not afraid of, I
No,
can
I know.
guarantee you. But in real life, definitely afraid of sharks.
Yes, so that not a scary shark costume, but it's perfect for me, I guess. So let's
All
jump
right.
in. Now that we've shaken up the fear part, let's have a chat, Sandra.
Yeah, sounds good. So, yeah, thanks for bringing in the holiday. That was needed. Let me do a little housekeeping and then we'll get started. So the call is being recorded, everybody. We're going to move, before we move into questions from our attendees, and I hope you all have your questions, we're going to take a few minutes to just set the stage. And then in the second half of today's session, we'll dive into both live and pre-submitted questions. So feel free to drop yours in the chat as we go. Our colleague Weston is going to be monitoring the chat, and she's also going to be our kind of MC for the second half of the Q&A here. So when we go over your question, we're going to invite you to come off mute, introduce yourself, name, pronouns, title, organization, and state your question. We might have some clarifying questions, and then we'll process it with you. And please feel free to put follow-up questions and comments and responses in the chat too. We'd love this to be a learning and engaging conversation for everybody. Okay, so let's set the scene. So before we jump into audience questions, let's just start with a big picture. So you've coached so many nonprofit leaders who say they know fundraising is important, but they still find themselves avoiding the ask. And in particular, I think your perspective on how often organizations ask is interesting. So why do you think fear shows up so often in fundraising, even for experienced professionals?
Well, I think because, well, first, your first question of, the frequency of asking. I think every organization, there's a spectrum, either too much asking or not enough asking. And I find like the role of the development department is to find their way to that sweet spot. And that's challenging because it requires awareness of like, okay, actually thinking about beyond asking, what are we doing? Because the ask, is all, there's the pressure for funding. There are all these outside pressures, and the ask is the thing that could possibly alleviate it. So I feel like there's that spectrum of not enough or too much. And I think sometimes people in the not enough area, it's like you get kind of caught in a habit, we're creatures of habit as humans. Right. But then when your question about fear and how fear shows up, I think it's because we can only control our part of the conversation. There is this unknown and uncertainty on the other side. And, we all make up stories about what someone else is going through. Right. I have a client that came up with this, acronyms always help, right? So help kind of reframe things. And a client of mine has this acronym WAG, and it's for Wild Ass Guests, which if you're on fundraising in this call, we've all been in those situations where we are making a WAG. We're doing that. So I was thinking about fear and how to kind of break that up as fundraisers. And I came up with WALK. So the fear is either within you, it's in the other. So what are you concerned about with the other? Or it's context, WOC. So you have to know where the fear is coming from. So it takes it's really important to take a minute to kind of think about, why am I so afraid? You know, you're looking at this donor name, you're looking at the ask amount, and you're preparing, because that's essential part of the process. But where is the fear? If it's within you, because sometimes, I mean, we all wake up on days where, you know, I'm not feeling so confident today, or just having a hard day, because we all live lives. If it's within you, what can you do to change that? You know, maybe you're not making that call today. Maybe you're doing it, maybe you're doing this work a little later in the day, go for a walk, you know, just break up the fear within you. And if there's a situation with the other, so maybe you don't feel like you know enough about what this person cares about. Maybe you don't, maybe you look back at your contacts and realize you haven't actually talked about this one specific thing that you're planning to ask them for. So then that's fine. What do you need to do? What's the next best thing that you can do to get closer to knowing that thing, or knowing the right question to ask them? And then context. I mean, context is like the world we're living in right now. You know, there's always been uncertainty. We live our lives in uncertainty, but you know, there's been a system in place. There's a structure. There's sort of predictability, I think. And now in the world we're living in, the uncertainty is more in your face. So how do you also think about, okay, well, this is going on here, but the organization I'm serving is doing this amazing thing that's making a better difference in the world. And that is where I'm going to put my energy and focus. So you don't have to ignore the context, but you don't have to have that be the thing that keeps you from making an ask, because actually your ask is the path to progress and hope and impact. I don't know if I sort of just went on the tangent.
No, that's
there,
great.
but,
That's great. As you mentioned, this idea of like not asking enough or asking too much, and that's the spectrum of that, and trying to find that sweet spot. It occurs to me in thinking back to my life as a frontline fundraiser, the time, you know, some of the times when I felt a certain amount of fear around those conversations is when I was maybe being pushed to make an ask that the donor might not have been ready for because of the financial needs of the organization. So there was just this level of discomfort because I knew, or I had a sense that we weren't at the point where we were ready for that conversation. And yet on the other hand, sometimes, you know, the asks just need to be made, and there's never necessarily an absolutely perfect moment.
right, exactly. And another thing I talk about a lot in my work with different organizations is, you know, you build relationships through asking.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's how you learn about people. And you know, rarely is there a hard no. You know, you're working with humans. So usually people say, oh, that doesn't really resonate. So then there's kind of there's an opening to like, oh, well, what would, you know, what about
exactly.
this? You know, it's kind of, that's how we build relationships. So I think the too much asking is when things are less relational.
Mm-hmm.
Because too much is like, well, where is that coming from? Is that coming from the donor perspective? Is that coming from the staff perspective? You know, but just how do you stay relational with the asks? I think.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Why don't we dig in, Weston, why don't we dig into some of our questions we have from the group?
Sure. Sounds good to me. We have a couple of questions that were submitted in advance. I'm wondering if Amanda are you on the call? Because I'd love for you to come up off mute and on video to ask your question directly to Sandra and Allison. I think I saw you before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, sorry, I am actually on the go while I'm calling in today.
Oh my gosh. Well, hi. I'll pass you right over to Allison and Sandra to ask your question.
So my question that I submitted ahead, I'll introduce myself. I'm Amanda from Maryland, and I am a fundraising and event planning consultant. And what I hear, what I've experienced, and what I've heard from a lot of clients over the years isn't necessarily a fear about making the ask, but what the ask is going to be and how much to ask for. Are they going to ask for too much? Are they not going to ask for enough? And so I think even after doing as much research as you can about the donor or the prospect, there's sometimes still a lot of fear that you're not going to get it right. And so my question is, how do you either make peace with that, or how can you feel better about that number that you're going to put out there?
That's a great question, Amanda. Thank you. I think that is something that just everybody feels at one point or another, right?
Yeah.
It's the first thing is that we're humans and we can make mistakes. So just owning that and knowing that you're going to do the best you can, and you've done your preparation, you have this ask amount, and you got to just do it and see what happens. I mean, the not enough is a really tricky question to answer, because like, what is the right amount? So the not enough, how does that show up? Does that show up when someone says yes right away? I know I've been in meetings where they say, yes, this is great, I'd love to. And I'm thinking, oh, no, but it could have been the perfect ask. But instead I'm like, oh, I probably didn't ask for enough. But really, I mean, they said yes, and that's the goal. And I thought about what I wanted and needed and for the organization. And if you're doing that, like the thing that's hard is when there's no concept of how this gift is going to make a difference. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan of gift charts, because you can show, you show people what is needed to get to the goal. And if an organization is afraid about talking about what's needed, that's the first problem. But, in the ask, you're thinking about this person, you're thinking about the need, you're looking at their historical giving maybe, and some other factors, but really it's part of the art and science of this work, and you just got to do it.
Yeah, I would say, sorry to interrupt, Allison.
Yeah,
I
no,
would say,
thanks,
like,
Andrea.
the more you can do the research to see, where that individual has given before, look back at the relationship that your organization has with them, because it might help you understand, let's say that you're asking for renewal on their annual giving. You might, take a percentage, if you don't know anything else, of their current gift and ask them for a bit more as an upgrade. If you're asking for a campaign gift, maybe you, as a rule of thumb, you could take 5 times or 10 times their current giving if you don't have anything else to go by. But if it's a really active philanthropist, then you probably can find a lot of information that will help guide your ask. I love what you said earlier, Allison, about, I asked for what I needed for the organization, and they said yes. Like, you don't always have to like maximize,
Right.
try to get to that point of maximizing the potential of their giving. Like, if you ask for a certain project and that's the amount you needed, and they were happy to say yes, that's a wonderful outcome. I remember early in my fundraising days, I was really excited. I was working in corporate sponsorship, and I was really excited to get a $25,000 contribution from Goldman Sachs. And there was a person on my team who said, Goldman Sachs, they have so much money and you only got $25,000. And, it's just, it's an example of that moment of like, oh, could have done more. That was what they were going to give at the time. But that second guessing, either by, your own self or by somebody else on your team, doesn't do you any good. You can't go back and say, whoops, I didn't mean 25, I meant 100. You can't
Right.
you can't turn it around. What you can do is build the relationship and increase the giving over time. And so I think you just have to make, like you said, you just have to make peace with it. Like,
Yeah.
and the other thing you said earlier is accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes. And if you're doing this work and you're doing it often enough, and you're getting out there, you are going to make mistakes. That's part of with this work. You have to accept that that's part of this. If you're not making any mistakes, you're probably being way, way too careful and cautious and probably not asking enough. So that's something you just have to make peace with.
And I think that in line with the mistakes piece, Sandra, I can't think of an example that I know of, and maybe they are out there, but where a mistake has, these are people who are passionate about a cause or an organization, where a mistake that maybe a fundraiser made has eliminated the relationship, where they're just like, I'm done with, I forget it, that. And if that happens, because I think that's a fear, fear that we
Yeah.
have. It's like, we're stewards of this relationship, but we're going to ask for something that will offend somebody, or, just ruin the relationship. It's rare. Like, it has to be a pretty big mistake. And there are usually a lot of other people involved, and you have a relationship with this person. It's going to be okay. And also you can build, I remember, I made a mistake in Seattle. I don't know if any of you have been to Seattle, but there are lots of similar streets names, but they have a north or a south or an east or a west, and it doesn't always make sense in the city. I told a donor to go. I forgot to put north on, on this, and they, they were in an Uber. They were livid when I finally connected with them. It was terrible. I was not a junior person either. So anyway, they were so upset, but we got together, we got to the visit that I'd scheduled with them to meet these artists. And I did cry. She made me cry. But at the end of the meeting, she said, I just want you to know that I feel my feelings and I feel them freely, and then it's done. So you don't have to worry about the fact that I made you cry. Like, oh. And anyway, we built the relationship, friendship. It's wonderful. We're still friends, and I don't work at the organization anymore. But it's just got to live in the moment. And
Yeah. And I think that that's such a great story. Like, it doesn't, I'm sure it felt horrible in the morning, but in the moment, but that's such a great story, because it shows, like, there are moments when you feel like, oh, this is horrible. Something horrible has happened. I've done the wrong thing. I've made such a huge mistake. And those kinds of things, we know this from our personal life, and it's true in our professional life. They can be a pathway to deepening your relationship, because you get past the kind of professional veneer of the conversation and move to a place that is a little bit maybe too full of emotion, but can get you to a place where it feels vulnerable, and you learn something about yourself, you learn something about the donor, and then interesting way, you just be like, just as you described, you become closer.
Right, exactly. And I feel like this work is fundraising, development in general is, more of a vocation than like a 9 to 5, right? You're thinking about these people all the time. You're thinking about your team, your organization, your personal work. Like, I still go into grocery stores, and when I see the Edwards single serving key lime pie slice, I think of a donor that I know loves them.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really a gift to be able to do this. And the ask is just that, like you said, Sandra, the moment of, like, kind of deepening, it's an opportunity to deepen. So the relationship.
Thank you for that, Amanda. I want to make sure that do you have any last questions or thoughts about it?
Thank you so much. Those were great ideas, great things to keep in mind, and things that I'll definitely share with clients and fellow fundraisers. So thank you.
Great, Amanda.
Thank you. I want to take a pivot, kind of going back to our basics. We talked a lot, we had a prep call, spoiler alert, earlier this week. We talked a lot about preparation and the fundamentals of an ask. And I want to highlight Gen B, sorry, my eyesight, terrible. But Jen, you asked a question in the chat, and I was hoping that you could come off mute and on camera and ask your question to our experts.
Oh, you're
Oh, Jen,
mute.
Jen, you're on mute. I love the excitement. If you need help, I'm asking you to unmute. Oh no.
There we go. Okay.
Oh,
Yay.
yes.
Great. Hi, Jen.
Okay. Hi. This is a new avenue for me. I work for the Friendship Center in Kamloops, and I generally write grants, which is I'm very comfortable doing. Uh, we're in a position that we're building a new housing unit, and underneath that, we want to build a new friendship center because the center that we're in now is full of asbestos and leaks and everything you don't want to have,
Right.
and isn't got enough room. And so um, through BC housing, we can access money for housing, but we can't access money for the Friendship Center. And so we need to raise $7 million. We've accessed 3 already through a daycare, but we need to raise another $7 million. And so they looked at me and said, "Oh, you write grants, you can do this." I was like, "Oh, really? There's nothing similar in here." But anyhow, but that's like anybody that works in a friendship center, you always have 10 jobs and you get paid for one, which is fine. But it's like, okay, now I need to figure this out. And so we're going to an Indigenous business function in Vancouver in 2 weeks. We just got invited, and I'm kind of going like, is it a good idea for me to get hold of the list of people coming if I can, find out who they are, what their needs are, and how would I approach them? Or am I going at this all the wrong way?
Thank you, Jen. That's a great question. Sandra, do you want me to jump in? Sorry, I didn't know if you.
Yes, please, please, please.
So I'm wondering, are you talking about prospecting then? You're looking for people to ask at this function, or are
Yeah,
you?
we're looking, at this point, I don't know whether it's just an opportunity to meet these people and then develop a relationship, or whether there's going to be an opportunity that you're going to be in a position to say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Is this something you're interested in?" Obviously, you're going to have to read the person as to, this is where we're at. And, we're also putting together a campaign for Giving Tuesday, which is separate, but yeah.
Well, Jen, I think your intuition is right on. When you go to this meeting, try to meet as many people as you can and talk about what you're doing. I mean, you're a grant writer, so you're an excellent storyteller. I know spoken is different from written, but I believe in you, just the way you've articulated your situation here. I think if you can introduce yourself, find out more about the individuals you're meeting with, and share about the Friendship Center. And then, like you said, build a relationship. I don't know, it's people are funny about lists and sharing. I don't know what the culture is like in terms of the free flowing of information, but
Yeah.
the event organizers, if you can somehow connect with them and build a relationship with the organization, that's your first step. And $7 million is a lot of money. So I'm also thinking about I'm thinking about your gift chart. I'm thinking about your constituent base who support the Friendship Center now, and how you're going to figure out who you're going to ask for what. But definitely at this phase, you're not going to raise the $7 million by making $10,000 asks of people.
No.
So your instinct to develop relationships and kind of make some one-on-one contact is right on.
Okay.
We have a lot of resources that I can share. I can talk about in terms of the ask itself. So let's say, Jen, it's January. You've made a connection at this meeting. You've had another meeting with somebody, and you feel like you know enough about them and that they have capacity and inclination to fund part of this Friendship Center campaign. Let's say in January, you're going to sit down with them and you're going to make an ask. Because the other thing is let's say you have one more meeting, 2 more meetings. you want to know how to frame the ask. I think
Mhm.
that's what I'm hearing from you. You know, you're used
Yeah.
to having the criteria, the rubric for the grant, and then you write it out and then you send it off.
Mhm.
The great thing about asking someone in person is it is a conversation. You're not just putting your stuff out there and then waiting. It's more
Right.
active.
Yeah.
And it can be fun. And I think
Mhm.
you know enough about fundraising and people and storytelling to like make it successful. But I'm gonna share. And Weston, I put a link. I don't know if you okay, you saw it. So in 2018, I went to the Association of Fundraising Professionals conference in New Orleans. Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. But I heard a woman speak, Marcy Heim. She is a fundraiser in Wisconsin. She was fundraising at universities for like 30 years, and now she is a consultant and coach. And um, I met her for the first time at this conference. She has a fantastic ask formula that Weston is going to put in the chat, and I use it. I recommend it for clients, and I had the great fortune of actually working with her one-on-one for a bit shortly after that. But she is a singer as well, and she does karaoke, all this stuff. So in this conference session, and I'm sure all of you on the call have been to many conferences, and can you tell me like the one session that you remember and all that? You know, it's kind of a blur, right? Especially when you've been doing it for more than 10 years. It's like, anyway, she sang a song and she taught us all a song. And it's kind of like building yourself up and reminding yourself as a fundraiser that you can do this. And then she has this ask formula. You don't sing in the ask. I'm just gonna like take this.
It's okay. Everybody leave the room if I sang.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be an empty ask.
Oh no. Well, anyway, so what she says, and this is what I want you to think about. I'm gonna sing it because I don't know why not. It's Halloween. Okay, so she sings this and she does it with like music and everything, but I'm just gonna do it for you now, a cappella. Okay. People love to give me money to make a difference, but people love to give me money. I'm a bridge to their investment. All right, I want you all to
That
sing
was great.
it.
Shall we all sing together?
I think we should, but Zoom can't handle that. So I
That's
want,
true.
but that song plays in my
Okay.
head more than you would like to know. I mean, not so much anymore because I'm not asking directly for money anymore, but it's about you, Jen. It's about you. You're a bridge. You're going to help make this happen. And the person you're talking to, you're going to help them use their resources to make a difference. And so,
Okay.
and you'll have the ask formula, which
Yeah, I just took a picture of it, so it's perfect.
oh, good. Well, it's on the web. You can download the PDF, and
Okay.
it's really helpful. It'll give you some questions to think about as you're introducing yourself to people and getting to know people. But I think this opportunity that you have to meet some folks is a great start.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah, I
All
really
about
appreciate that.
awesome. It's all about relationships, isn't it? It's all about building relationships. That's all it really is. And I love this resource, and my favorite resource, which is kind of parallel to this, I would say, is Laura Frederick's. Her book, The Ask, is really fantastic.
Yes.
And it's a great, great book to read. It gives you a lot of good tips in order to kind of demystify the process, and also to give you some formulas to do that asking. So I strongly recommend that as
That's
well.
a good one, Sandra.
What's the name of the book again?
The Ask.
Yeah, okay.
Easy to remember. The Ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I might have that one right here, but oh, no, I don't. I just moved, so all my books are around me, not in order.
Surrounded by books. That's the best. I love it. I'll put it in the chat
Yeah, Laura.
while Weston's focusing on our next question.
Oh, I was typing it as you spoke. Thank you so much, Jen. And now we have, I love the resources. If anybody else on this call has a great resource that they have used for asking or overcoming fear of fundraising, maybe a book. I know many of us are readers. I'm not one of them, spoiler, but it's fine. Please share what you have in the chat. I want to move on to our next question. And actually, I'm loving all of this real-time example work. So I want to call up Rebecca. Rebecca Everly, you mentioned in the chat, I have an example of my extremely poor fundraising skills. I'm sure that's not true, but would you mind coming up off camera or on camera, off mute, and let's talk about it in real time?
Sure. I mean, I am a poor fundraiser, and I just don't know if my particular brand of poor fundraising is similar to anyone else's, but I'll just give you an example. So I'm within a larger organization, but I direct a body within it. And we rely on all kinds of, we have individual contributions, some occasionally some grants, but lots of individual contributions from people to the tune, $1,000 here, $5,000 here, things like that. So, but I really also rely on those people for assistance on, like, substantive assistance on projects. And I'm quite shy. I don't know how to make the transition to asking for funding. I think I'm a bit worried that they're going to think that I just see them as a big dollar sign because they're sort of, so, I mean, the example I wanted to mention is from when I very first started at this organization. There was a guy who had given us, contributions of $5,000, $10,000, but he was a multimillionaire. And he was in New York, I was in DC, and said, why don't you come up and we'll talk about your program and everything. And I came up and I was excited, and I thought of that as a prospecting thing. But I had lunch with him, and we had a lunch for an hour, and I talked to him about everything else, but I could not make the ask because I had talked to him about so many things, his interests, the program before that I was afraid that saying the ask at the end would seem like, well, all of this, you pretended to care about all these things and me and my family, and really you just wanted to get to the place where you would. So I would really appreciate knowing if other people, I see someone said I've been there. I really appreciate
It's
that.
so common.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so common. Yeah.
That, and then also I know I'm going to have to raise money. So how can you make a transition when you're having a nice conversation with someone like that doesn't sound like you're just using them for their money? That would be
Okay.
really helpful.
I gotta ask you, Rebecca,
Sure.
were you using him for his money? Were you there only because you wanted to ask for a gift?
No, because what our committee is a human rights committee, and so we rely on people to, when there are, various challenges, I'll call this person and ask them for a contact or support. So we rely on people for everything. And so I think that's my worry too, that with some people, if I do approach them for money, I'll be too shy to ask them for the other kind of support because I'll think, oh, I don't even want to have a relationship with them anymore because I have had that money, but do you see what I mean? Like, I don't know how to have a friendship, like a relationship with someone that involves money that is natural, basically.
This is really at the crux of it. This is the whole, I love this question, Rebecca, because this is really at the heart of what can be so challenging about this. So I think one thing to know is that like that asking at lunch or at a meal is you need a little formula for that. You need a moment when you know you're going to transition over to talking about the gift. And so you might want to think about that. I'm very curious to know what you think about this, Allison, but you might want to think about it as like by the middle of the entree, you're going to say, well, here's, one thing I really wanted to talk with you about today. So that you don't get to the point where you have half a cup of coffee left at the very end of the meal, because then it's really hard to bring it up. So you might want to just time it out for yourself so you know when you're going to have to state that transition sentence and plan for that sentence before you go into the meal so you're ready to do it. And I want to say one more thing, and then I'm very curious what you have to say, Allison. You're somebody who is a donor who's going out to lunch with you to talk about your programs is expecting you to have a conversation about donations. If you're going to a lunch and you haven't, and it's not clear on their side that there's going to be a conversation about a donation, then you need to kind of make that clear. And it sounds like he instigated the meeting. Is that correct? Yeah. So I would say in that situation, I don't think you should feel uncomfortable about talking. He gave a donation in the past. So he's a donor, and it seems pretty reasonable to assume that there would be a conversation about that. So Allison, curious to hear, I know you've done a million of
Oh
over
yeah.
lunch asks.
Oh gosh. And yeah, I think I love your suggested transition, Sandra. It's, I'd love to talk to you about this or whatever. And then
Yeah.
I've also been in the situation where you were, Rebecca, where it's the end and you haven't done the ask. So here's
Yeah.
the one you pull out in that moment, because it happens, right? You feel
Happens,
like
yeah.
you missed your window, you're just whatever. You say, this has been really lovely. I know how much you care about this organization. You're working for a human rights organization. How can you not care about that?
Right, exactly.
And you say, I know how much you care about this organization. Would you be open to receiving a proposal about this project? Because if the lunch is over, and because he might say, actually, let's talk about it now. I mean, donors have done that. So that's like if you've missed several times, that's like the last, like you've done something. Then you're leaving knowing that, yes, they want to hear from me again, and I'm going to send them a specific ask. Or you give yourself another step. Like I worked with a client recently, a board member said, your first job is to get the first meeting. Your second job is to get the second meeting. It's like two jobs. That's all. You're just like going from meeting to meeting.
That's good, yeah.
And we're humans. We want to connect. And also you brought up something about asking too much, or you're asking for one thing like advocacy, and then you're asking for cash as well. It takes that. It takes all of those things. And how would a relationship be like if I decided I'm only going to take one ask a day from my kid? So I'll be like, just think about it like that. Because it's like, oh, mom, would you do this for me? I'll do it for you. And then they ask me to do something again later. I'm like, you know what? I'm out. I did one today. That's it. Like,
Wait
it's
till
not
tomorrow.
right. Yeah, it's a
I'll get you dinner
relationship.
tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Let's pause on that.
I
So,
think
Thank you.
I think it's also like I want to invite you. First of all, please don't call yourself a poor fundraiser again. That is
right.
not true, and you do not need to lock into that. If you're asking for money, if you're building relationships, then you're a great fundraiser. And it is a lifelong practice. You will constantly need to do things to, get better at it. But second of all, I think it does help to reframe your relationship with donors as a partnership, not as they need something, I need to get it from them kind of relationship, because there is no reason why it needs to feel lopsided. Their giving brings them, and there's science behind this, brings them a tremendous amount of joy. He has resources that he can deploy to do good in the world, and you're giving him the opportunity, go back to the song that Allison was singing earlier,
Right.
you're giving him the opportunity to do good in the world, to use the resources that he's blessed to have, to make a difference in the world. And he can't do that without you. It really is a partnership.
Right. And I mean, these folks the donors we work with are not thinking about our organizations as much as we are.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's our job to make sure that they know that what they're doing is making a difference, and that they stay connected because they care about it. So it's very important.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing this with us, Rebecca, because I think so many people on this call have been in that situation. So thank you so much. Do you have any last questions or thoughts?
I just want to say one last thing, if I can, to Rebecca. Also, let donors be generous. I just want to tell you a short story. I was making an ask for a capital campaign, and we were having dinner, and we were just kind of getting started, and we were talking about, they were asking me about me, and then I knew they'd just gone on a big trip, but I also had been thinking, all right, I want to make this ask early because I know these people, and I want us to just be able to have a great dinner. But I got caught in the kind of catching up and the casual. And I said, oh, tell me about Spain. How is Spain? And they both said, you know what? No. Let's not talk about Spain yet. Don't you have something you want to talk to us about? I'm like, oh, bless you. Thank you so much. And so then they helped me reframe. Like, yes, of course. So happens
That's
to all
awesome.
of us. Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then you got to have a nice dinner and catch up, and
Yeah, and
you
they
didn't have to
said
worry
yes.
about. Yeah,
They said
awesome.
yes. Which so then I had that feeling of like, oh, but I knew it was the right size for them. So yeah, they said yes. We had a great dinner. And yeah. Okay, that's it. I'm done, Weston. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. And Amanda, I see your hand raised. I invite you to come off mute and on camera. Do you have a question for Allison and Sandra? Maybe it's
Yeah, I do. So first of all, thanks, Rebecca, for giving that example. I'm curious, in the process, was that individual, like, do you still have a relationship with that individual? Was there like a follow-up email? Was there a follow-up phone call? I'm just curious about, I think a lot of times we focus on the product, like did we get money or did we not, versus the process of building the relationships. And so I'm just curious, Rebecca, sorry to call you on the spot again, but first of all, I think, thanks for being vulnerable and sharing that. But what was the afterwards? Does that make sense? Like, what was the, okay, phone call, email, that kind of process for you?
Yeah, so I mean, trying to figure out a way to say this that it doesn't sound, because it's a bit of like this makes the fundraising really bad, but it's also a sad story. But it was a long time ago. He died. So the situation, he was a very elderly man, and he was very, very wealthy. And he asked that I come up and talk to him more about my program. And we had lunch, and I talked all about his kids and, everything else but money. I was too shy to ask for money. And then he did seem a bit puzzled by that, although he was very nice. I thanked him. We had like a few other conversations about other support that he gave for our work, and then he died later that year. So that is the story of that fundraising opportunity. But yeah.
That's exactly why you gotta ask when you can. Rebecca, it's like oh God, that's sad. But
Yeah.
I think the opportunity, Rebecca, for you to like have the silver lining of that, and I'm sorry, because even, we say the individual is a donor, he still is that human that you had that connection with. So I'm sorry for that loss, because that can be hard. Not only in the moment, but now, you probably have this energy of like, man, that person is missing from that donor group of yours. So I appreciate you sharing that, because that's really vulnerable. The second thing I think of what you're teaching us is there's different ways that people can donate. And the larger conversation, we recently have been working on, people's estates, or, how they redesign their trusts, et cetera. So that being said, yes, that didn't happen, but I think folks on this call can take a lot away from what you might see as a mistake. Like I truly don't think there's mistakes. I think in that space, you leveraged that vulnerability, that he was a human, that you were there. He then passes, which is very sad. But what can he teach us, even in this room of people? So thank you for sharing that. And thanks for taking my question.
Thank you.
Yes. And Marcy, do you have a comment about what we're talking about? I see your hand is raised as well. Oh, you're muted.
Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Well, I thank you for having me. I'm in all transparency, I'm not a fundraiser. I'm an executive coach, and I run my business, as many of you might. I'm also a very dear friend of our guest speaker here, who I think that was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen about the shark thing. So hats off to Allison for that. Love it. Totally on topic. But what the reason I raised my hand is because I really am struck by, I don't know how many of you run your own businesses like Allison does, but the thought that keeps coming of this beautiful conversation, the thought that keeps coming to me is so much of this has to do with how we also run our businesses and how we price our products and how we build relationships and how we create stewardship. And just to say it, it's just what struck me is, of course, there's differences, but this business of being afraid to ask for what we're worth, all this stuff. So thanks for having me. And I just adore Allison Rabbitt, and you're killing it, Allison. And just to say that, this is not just about fundraising, it's about other things too. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy.
Marcy, that's so true. It's, I think getting back to the book, The Ask, we ask for things, and what you said earlier, Allison, about your kids, like we ask for things all day long. We, in our personal lives, in our private lives, just, showing up in a store, whatever it is, like we're always asking for things and thinking about how we do it and how we value ourselves, our work, the organizations we work for, and their missions and work is something that we have to grapple with when we're having these conversations. So I appreciate you bringing that into the space, Marcy. That was great.
I have one thing. Thank you, Marcy. Nice to see you. I'll buy you a drink later. So I have one more thing I want to add that I was thinking that popped in my head when Rebecca was talking. And I worked with a fantastic fundraiser once who just had this sort of minimum threshold for herself every day. And it was like one ask and one thank you, just to keep it balanced. And I think about that all the time. And the thank you is really good if you're in a place of fear, if you're kind of stuck, if you're for whatever reason, picking up the phone and saying thank you to somebody really like breaks up. It reminds you about the connection. It reminds you about your role. And it also is just great practice to be thanking as well as asking. So that's just another tool to kind of break through the fear and also be relational.
That's so good. I love that.
Thank you. So we're like running close to time. So I have one last question that I think I want to land on that was submitted beforehand. We talked a lot in our prep meeting about reframing no, that there's a lot of fear in when you make the ask, you hear no. Allison and Sandra, I love what you have both had to say about reframing it and how to approach it. So I think that would be a great place to land this hot seat coaching.
I agree, Allison. You had some great advice. Take it away.
Okay. Oh gosh, I hope I can remember what I said. Well, I think first, I said this earlier, I think, you rarely hear no. You hear, I'm overcommitted, or, oh, that's a lot of money, or, just there's a response. And I know all of you on this call know that the number one rule in fundraising is after you make the ask, you are just quiet. You're sitting there, you're listening, you're pausing. So when you hear this response and it sounds like a no or a not now, remember that you are human and you can take a breath. I encourage you to take a breath and repeat what you've heard and then ask a question, So I hear that you're saying that this is not the right time for you, that there's a lot of uncertainty and you're not sure what, I understand that. What would you be willing to do if this wasn't the situation? Because again, context, it's out of everyone's control, right? What would you be interested in doing if this wasn't the situation? Or is there anything I could tell you about that might move you toward interest in this project? Or I have a whole list of questions that answers to questions like that, or statements like I'm overcommitted, or let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And it's like, that's my favorite. Let me think about it. Because really, when you're asking for a large amount of money, it's rare that somebody's saying yes, unless there's been like a back and forth before, they've already had a proposal and the ask is but it's like, well, again, think about what can you control? What factors are you considering? And is there any more information I can get for you to help you weigh this decision? And, sometimes people will say, you've made an ask for $500,000 and then they come back and say, we are definitely going to commit at 250 and we're considering 500,000. You're definitely thanking them for the 250. And then you're saying, you know, this is amazing. Is there anything I can do as you consider the full proposal? You know, just kind of reflecting what you've heard and then asking a little bit more or making a statement of how maybe you could make a different contribution to their process. Just, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's so great. And then I would also say, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but prepare for these meetings. And part of preparing for these meetings is being prepared to respond to a yes, a no, and a maybe, and have your kind of responses ready to go. A lot of these conversations are just not natural everyday conversations. So you have to rehearse them. You have to prepare for them. You have to be prepared for any questions they might ask. And it's even useful to just take some time in a journal and a piece of paper, write down all the possible reactions that you might get, or even the ones you just fear that you might get.
Yes.
Like, how dare you ask me for that much money? That is a very unlikely scenario, but if you're nervous about that, then, you know, write up your response to that. Think about what your response to that would be so that you can kind of put that one aside and focus on what you need to focus on. That helps to kind of ease your mind around all this stuff as well.
And fear is excitement without breath.
Yes.
Right. So that I definitely wanted to say that to you all.
Yes, yes.
It's your body is getting ready to do something exciting. You know, it's a big deal. And because no matter how much you prepare, you're dealing with a dynamic individual who is feeling their own feelings and in their own world. And you just, you know, you just don't know how it's going to go. So just if you have that fear, turn it into excitement and remember to keep breathing.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so great. Okay, we're coming on the hour. As usual, this went by so fast, so fast. I feel like we could, you know, do another hour on this really, really easy. But I'm so grateful to you, Allison. I'm so grateful to everybody who showed up today to be part of this conversation, to ask your questions, to be vulnerable, to kind of weigh in. I love that. We'll go ahead and share some details on ways to connect with Allison. The best way is through your email address. Isn't that right, Allison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be starting a newsletter soon, and it's going to be like a fun-sized Snickers bar, you know, short, sweet, and it'll be satisfying. So
I love that.
if you want to sign up for that, I think I put a link, Weston, I don't know if you saw that. And okay, great. There's a link and a form you can fill out, and I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to send it yet because it's, yeah, but it'll be soon-ish. So.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
Stay
thank
tuned.
you so much. Thank you,
Yeah.
all of you, for listening and being part of this. And Sandra, thank you for this opportunity. I love talking with you.
It's so much fun. I love it too. I love it too. Okay, well, keep in touch with all of us. We have our next Hot Seat Coaching coming up in November on Friday, November 21st, again at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm really excited that we're going to talk with my friend and colleague, Harold Wolpert. Harold, I see you there. Give a wave. His company, My Purple Crayon Advisors, is wonderful. We've had such a pleasure partnering with him on various projects. And we are going to dig into the very fun topic of guiding a board through a big decision. I'm really, really excited about that. And I've seen how Harold manages that, and he's going to have some really great advice for everybody. So again, Friday, November 21st, 1 p.m. Hope to see you there. This was great fun as usual. Thank you, Allison. That was fantastic. Stay in touch, everyone.
Bye. See you.